Srimad, His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami, Srila Prabhupada ki
Jai.
Gaur Bhaktivinoda ki
Jai.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
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 This morning we're going to read one verse, text 39, from same place, Canto 3, Chapter 15. This is a continuation of the narration about the four Kumaras at the gates of Vaikuntha. Jai and Vijay got a warning, they're going to be cursed. They made a petition, a plea, that if they when they go to the material world, the curse of a Brahmana is unfailing, because the Supreme Lord upholds the words of a Brahmana. And please let us not be in a position where we will forget you, if we get the Supreme Lord. So the next set of verses, that ended with verse 36, and starting with verse 37, Lord Narayana, being omniscient, he knew this unfortunate event took place, and accompanied by his spouse, the goddess of fortune, he went to the spot on those very feet. Didn't even put his sandals on. Barefoot. Didn't wait for Garuda, he just went. And he went really fast. Then, the next verse, the four Kumaras, they saw Lord Narayan. And previously, they had seen Lord Vishnu within their hearts in meditation. So we often hear that they were Brahman realized, and then they became devotees. In text 38, it says they were able to see the personality of Godhead in their heart. Here's the text. The sages, headed by Sanaka Rishi, saw that the Supreme Personality of Godhead Vishnu, who was formerly visible only within their hearts in ecstatic trance, had now actually become visible to their eyes. He came forward, accompanied by his own associates, bearing all paraphernalia, listing paraphernalia, his features. So now, text 39. Nice verse and long purport. The Lord is the reservoir of all pleasure. His auspicious presence is meant for everyone's benediction, and his affectionate smiling and glancing touch the core of the heart. The Lord's beautiful bodily color is blackish, and his broad chest is the resting place of the goddess of fortune, who glorifies the entire spiritual world, the summit of all heavenly planets. She was by his side as well. Thus, it appeared that the Lord was personally spreading the beauty and good fortune of the spiritual world. Purport. 2 long paragraphs. When the Lord came, he was pleased with everyone. Therefore, it is stated here, Krishna prasada sumukham. The Lord knew that even the offensive doormen were his pure devotees, although by chance they committed an offense at the feet of other devotees. To commit an offense against a devotee is very dangerous in devotional service. Lord Chaitanya therefore said that an offense to a devotee is just like a mad elephant run loose. When a mad elephant enters a garden, it tramples all the plants. Similarly, an offense unto the feet of a pure devotee murders one's position in devotional service. On the part of the Lord, there was no offended mood, because he does not accept any offense created by a sincere devotee. But a devotee should be very cautious in committing offenses at the feet of another devotee. The Lord, being equal to all, and being especially inclined to his devotee, looked as mercifully at the offenders as at the offended. The attitude of the Lord was due to his unlimited quality of transcendental qualities. His cheerful attitude towards the devotees was so pleasing and heart-touching that his smile was attractive for them. That attraction was glorious, not only for all the higher planets of this material world, beyond in the spiritual world also. Generally, a human being has no idea of what the constitutional position is in the higher material planets, which are far better constituted in regard to all paraphernalia. Yet the Vaikuntha planet is so pleasing and so celestial that it is compared to the middle jewel, or locket in a necklace of jewels. Paragraph. In this verse, the words Sprithaniya Dham, Sprithaniya Dham, indicate that the Lord is the reservoir of all pleasure, because he has all the transcendental qualities. Although only some of these are aspired for by persons who hanker after the pleasure of merging in the impersonal Brahman, there are other aspirants who want to associate with the Lord personally as his servants. The Lord is so kind that he gives shelter to everyone, both impersonalists and devotees. He gives shelter to the impersonalists in his impersonal Brahman effulgence, whereas he gives shelter to the devotees in his personal abodes, known as the Vaikuntha Lokas. He is especially inclined to his devotee. He touches the core of the heart of the devotee simply by smiling and glancing over him. The Lord is always served in the Vaikuntha Loka by many hundreds and thousands of goddesses of fortune, as stated in Brahma Samhita. Lakshmi Sahasra Shatasam Brahma Sevimanam. In this material world, what is glorified is if he is favored even a pinch by the goddess of fortune. So we can simply imagine how glorified is the kingdom of God in the spiritual world, where there are many hundreds and thousands of goddesses of fortune engaged in the direct service of the Lord. Another feature of this verse is that it openly declares where the Vaikuntha Lokas are situated. Where's that? They are situated at the summit of all the heavenly planets, which are above the sun globe, at the upper limit of the universe, and are known as Satyaloka or Brahmaloka. The spiritual world is situated beyond the universe. Therefore, it is stated here that the spiritual world, Vaikuntha Loka, is the summit of all planetary systems. Well, Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai. naturally what Prabhupada is writing here is true, and conventionally, just read, generally a human being has no idea of what the constitutional position is in the higher material planets, which are far better constituted in regard to all paraphernalia. And what to speak of the kingdom of God. Vaikuntha. No, Srimad Bhagavatam is authoritative. You could spend a lot of time discussing its position as the topmost authority, pramana. But those that don't have that access, what do they do? Well, speculate. And then, based upon speculation, they reach some idea, a notion. It's in the mind. One of these presentations that I have been making speaks about the sankalpa function of the mind. Sankalpa vikalpa. So one of the standard descriptions of the sankalpa capacity of the mind is it takes thoughts and experiences and it sorts through them and it orders them in some kind of a pattern, so then one has a picture or an image of this is reality. It's only within the mind. And then the vikalpa feature says, no, it's not quite right. And then more experiences and so forth, and it changes, ever-changing picture. It's just but it's just a mental picture. It's not the real thing. It's a picture in the mind. So take that description and speak about practically anything, but say things having to do with spiritual knowledge, the form of God, or here, you know, the constitutional position of the heavenly planets. You probably all heard me say, what's it like there? When I was a boy. Nobody knew. It's true, nobody knew. Or some people poetically, you know, the pearly gates. Pearly gates. What's behind the pearly gates? What to speak of the constitutional position of Vaikuntha, or even that there is a distinction between heaven and the kingdom of God. Or, I mean, there's so many ors. Or Western philosophy, the distinction between the mind and the soul. Many philosophers, Western philosophers, don't even accept there's a mind. Descartes got riddled because he postulated that there's a mind. No. Prove it. Show me your mind. And so, you know, I think, therefore, so because anyway, what to speak of Paramatma in so many things. There's such a paucity of authoritative understanding. It's a world of darkness, like you were describing. Take anything. But I was recently hearing Prabhupada speak both figuratively as well as literally. Literally, without the sun, it's a place of darkness. And then luminaries in the sky that derives light from the sun, or electricity which derives power from the sun. That's what electricity is, without details of science or technology. It's just a transformation of the energy that's stored by the sun. Whether it's the wind power, or solar power, or petrol, or fuel, or something that burns, and so then you can create electricity. It's the power of the sun. Sunlight, moonlight, electricity. Without it, dark place. It's a place of darkness. Literally. And figuratively. Unlimited examples of figuratively. What if darkness creates dark activity and creates darkness? One becomes constrained by the reaction to ignorant activity. Darkness. Place of darkness. Therefore, our standard prayer, Om Agyana Timirandasya. Darkness due to Agyana, due to ignorance. So what a benefit to have knowledge. Transcendental knowledge. Not speculative knowledge. Transcendental knowledge. What to speak of the means to realize it. Besides, theory. Theory's nice. It's a beginning. It's incomplete. But Vijnana is necessary. And Namo Mahavadanyaya Krishna Prema Pradayate. Krishna, Lord Chaitanya freely gave the spiritual world. So the Bhagavatam is giving us, it's a very important chapter, chapter 50, description of the kingdom of God. Whew. And then when the Lord appears, like he appeared at Krishna Janmashtami, and then the demigods are offering, before he appeared, offering their prayers. What does it mean that he's appearing? Wonderful understanding. We can know the difference between darkness and light. We can know the difference between reality and illusion. We can know transcendence as opposed to darkness, because he appears. So here he's appearing. At the gate, he came to know of this scene, and he came at once. And he smiled. And his smile meant a lot. His smile and his glance meant a lot to both devotees, the Kumaras and Giant Vijay. And he settled up the situation very nicely. That's coming. But the emphasis in Prabhupada's purport is the Lord's reciprocation, his feelings of affection for both. And it was exhibited by his glancing and his smiling. Smiling. And so, Angani yasya sakalendriya vritti manti. Any one of his limbs can accomplish anything any of the other limbs can achieve. So just by his glancing, it's his embrace. His smiling. It's just, he filled their hearts. He didn't have to come. He came, personally. There's devotees. So then, in the purport, Prabhupada explains, the impersonalists, he reciprocates with them too. Here's my Brahma Jyoti. There's a place for you. You're my devotee. There's a place for you. Seems partial, because for the devotee at least, the situation of the impersonal Brahman is hellish. Why? Hellish because no service, no seeing the Lord, no exchange of emotion and love with the Lord. Hellish. Better to be in some dark place and have that relationship. Better to have some service. No service, straitjacket and blindfolded and gagged. No way. Hellish. But there are those that want. And he reciprocates. That's the picture we're getting here. And lastly, the opulence of the heavenly realm. What is millions of times more opulent than this realm? Who can even calculate that? That's the heavenly planets. And such a nice way to explain. In the material world, one is glorified if he is favored even a pinch by the goddess of fortune. So we can simply imagine how glorified is the kingdom of God in the spiritual world, with many hundreds and thousands of goddesses of fortune engaged in the direct service of the Lord. Just like, end with this, Brihat Bhagavatamrita's amazing description. I don't know any place else that it has this description, but Sanatana Goswami must have gotten it from some scriptural source. He describes that Gopakumar going through the 7 layers of the universe. And each one each layer being inconceivably greater in opulence and splendor and so forth. It's not like the earth layer is like, cement, and the water layer is like the ocean or something. It's not like that. We may have that speculation image in our mind, but that's not the description. But many times, so many times, each layer more opulent. Amazing journey. And that's the coverings of the universe. So what to speak then of the opulence of Vaikuntha? So when the Lord comes before, he's all attractive. And he's the reservoir of pleasure. And he's an expansion of the source of everything. And how do we know these things? From the authority of Srimad Bhagavatam. How fortunate. From ignorance to transcendence in an elevator. How fortunate. And we're lazy and distracted. How unfortunate. Okay, so any discussion?
Guru,
Maharaj, when we hear like how the Lord is equal to both the four Kumaras as well as Jay and Vijay. So when we hear this pastime, naturally we tend to compare the devotees, trying to understand, like for example the four Kumaras, they are put in the category of Brahmavadis, and then they somehow, because of smelling the aroma, they became devotees while they are the eternal doorkeepers of the Lord. Would it be kind of offensive, like if we try to understand their position in the spiritual world, when we try to see by comparing and contrasting the two categories of devotees?
Well, our acharyas can do that, but we cannot. And generally, our acharyas are cautious in comparing. In general, it is the breeding ground for offense to compare. We are enjoined to discriminate at the same time. So we can understand, let's say, the conclusion of Bhagavatam. The gopis are the most exalted servants of Krishna, and amongst them is Radharani. So there's a comparison. So it sounds like, well, okay, the others really the real deal is. So that's offensive. Because what Sanatana Goswami explains in the commentary is all of those persons, from the Brahmana that's worshipping his Shalagram Shila with great devotion, he's perfect. They're all perfect, but there's perfect, more perfect, most perfect, and in each case, it's the person themselves that speaks about their limitedness. Now, Vaishnava humility, but just being humble. On the other hand, they're deferring to someone who, in their estimation, is so. Yes, we should be very careful in comparing, and because we're going to hear the four Kumaras speak about themselves. Now they're placed in the position where the Lord is upholding their word. They're Brahmanas. On the other hand, the gatekeepers, they're Vaikuntavasis. Appears that Narayana is placing the Brahmanas, the four Kumaras, above gatekeepers. We have to be careful. Because we just heard, they're both dear. And they're participating, as we discussed yesterday, they're participating in a Leela of Lord Narayana in Vaikuntha, so that his chivalrous spirit can be fulfilled, etc., etc. So the answer to your question is yes, we have to be very careful. Sometimes our acharyas do, sometimes Prabhupada does, and then, two purports later, it's reversed. So there's different ways of looking at the same thing, even from one acharya. So it's not like rigid. There are lessons to be learned in making, in expounding on the lessons to be learned. Things may be said, and so what's important is the lessons to be learned, not that kind of discretion, not higher, lower. Anything else? Yeah.
Maharaj, in Christianity, there are no detailed descriptions about the kingdom of God. So I wonder when they, first of all, by following the Bible and its process, do they become perfected? And then if yes, then what is the...
I only know one reference where that question came before Srila Prabhupada. Rupanova wrote, he was really skilled at writing good questions, and Prabhupada would give, of course, perfect answers. And he wrote, as I remember him sending a letter, it was in the Henry Street Temple in New York. What's the destination of a perfected Christian? And Prabhupada wrote back saying it's pretty hard to find one. But if there were such a perfected Christian, their destination would be Brahmaloka, where they would have the opportunity to become perfected in bhakti and go back to Godhead. Opportunity. Now they're speaking in general terms, aside from that, the language is heaven. I don't know what the ancient terminology is, but the English is heaven. And so that's Swargaloka. And that conforms with what is written in the 8th chapter of Bhagavad Gita. Urdhvam gachanti sattvastaha. So those that are actually abiding by principles of goodness or godliness, they go to the heavenly realm, stay for some time, come back again.
So even if they pray to Jesus Christ as Lord, and Jesus Christ is son of a father, and who's Krishna,
Yeah.
so even they offer sincere prayers, they still are in the material world. The destination is, as you say, Brahmaloka is not spiritual world.
That's the perfected one. Now come down a bit into the less than perfected one. And that's the heavenly realm.
So a perfected Christian,
That's Prabhupada's word. What do I know?
hard to find.
Yes.
In other religions, they also say they also have devotion, not just Christianity.
And they have an idea of heaven.
Okay, so all of them will reach only material realm of heaven.
Yeah. Yeah. Well,
It's hard to
there may be, let's just say, there may be the exceptional person, but speaking in general terms, the aspiration is heaven, and their motivation is enjoy heavenly opulence. There may be exceptions. Srila Prabhupada ki jai.
Srila Romapada Swami Maharaj ki jai.
I want to check